Rajyakamo manundevan Niritim pabicharanyayet Kamakamo yajet somam Akama purusham param Rajyakama, anyone desiring an empire or kingdom. Manun, the Manus, semi-incarnations of God. Devan, demigods. Niditim, demons. Tu, but. Abhicharan, desiring victory over the enemy. Yajit, should worship. Kama, one who desires sense gratification. Yajit, should worship. Somam, the demigod named Chandra. Akama, one who has no material desires to be fulfilled. Purusham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Param, the Supreme. Translation. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons. And one who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. But one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation, please repeat. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons. And one who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. But one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. For a liberated person, all the enjoyments listed above are considered to be absolutely useless. Only those who are conditioned by the material modes of external energy are captivated by different types of material enjoyment. In other words, the transcendentalist has no material desires to be fulfilled, whereas the materialist has all types of desires to be fulfilled. The Lord has proclaimed that the materialists who desire material enjoyment and thus seek the favor of different demigods, as above mentioned, are not in control of their senses and so give themselves to nonsense. One should therefore not desire any sort of material enjoyment, being sensible enough to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The leaders of nonsensical persons are still more nonsensical because they preach openly and foolishly that they can worship any form of demigod and get the same result. This sort of preaching is not only against the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita or those of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but is also foolish, just as it is foolish to claim that with the purchase of any travel ticket, one may reach the same destination. No one can reach Bombay from Delhi by purchasing a ticket for Baroda. It is clearly defined herein that persons impregnated with different desires have different modes of worship, but one who has no desire for material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, the Personality of Godhead. And this worshipping process is called devotional service. Pure devotional service means service to the Lord without any tinge of material desires, including desire for fruitive activity and empiric speculation. For fulfillment of material desires, one may worship the Supreme Lord, but the result of such worship is different, as will be explained in the next verse. Generally, the Lord does not fulfill anyone's material desires for sense enjoyment, but he awards such benedictions to worshippers of the Lord, for they ultimately come to the point of not desiring material enjoyment. The conclusion is that one must minimize the desires from material enjoyment, and for this one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described here as Param, or beyond anything material. Sripad Sankaracharya has also stated, Narayana Paro Vyaktat, the Supreme Lord is beyond the material encirclement. Pure devotional service. Of course, the chapter is entitled Pure Devotional Service. But of course, Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning all different types of worship and continuing on, but ultimately always comes back to the position of purity beyond the material world. And I've mentioned a few times before that one time when Srila Prabhupada was lecturing in Auckland, he was speaking at the Gita Bhavan Hall, and at the end of the lecture, someone asked a question, and he said, in our Swamiji, in our Hindu religion, we have many gods. We have many gods, so what do you say about that? And so Prabhupada replied that, well, they are of this material world. I'm talking about something beyond this material world. So, this demigod, semi-god, whatever way you want to call it. Some say this word demigod was given by the Britishers to the different Hindu gods and so on and so forth. And some say otherwise, but anyway, the acharyas use it, demigod, semi-god, as explained here. But Sukadeva Goswami, he's saying that someone who has material desires, if they actually want to be successful in various ways, then they can worship different types of demigods. The Manus are mentioned here. If one desires domination over a kingdom or an empire, should worship the Manus. So we were speaking a little while ago about the Manus. Of course, the first Manu in this day of Brahma was Swayambhuva Manu. He married Satarupa. He was one of the sons of Lord Brahma. First Manu. It said in the day of Brahma there are 14 Manus who reigned for millions of years. What did we say? 311 million years, 320 million years, a cycle of 71 yugas, they reign. So Swayambhuva Manu, this is a title, Swayambhuva Manu, Rochisa Manu, Chakshusha Manu, present it's the Vaivashvata Manu. We're in the period of the Vaivashvata Manu. So they are empowered with their executive powers. They are rulers. And they are said to be the origins of mankind, because Brahma created the Manu, and then Manu coming down, especially this Vaivashvata Manu, he is the son of the sun god, and his son was Ikshvaku, who was given to be the ruler of the earth. And Lord Ramchandra comes in that line of the sun god, Ikshvaku. In Ayodhya, Ikshvaku was the ancient king, and all the mankind is said. Prabhupada, I remember hearing a lecture from Prabhupada where he was describing, Madhavisa actually asked him that question about who are the Manus and so on. And so Prabhupada said that, yes, I've said before many times, but he said that they are the origins of the mankind, especially now Vivishvan, sun god, and his son Vaivashvata Manu, or Shraddhadev, or Satyavrata. He took the position of the Vaivashvata Manu, and his son Ikshvaku. So from the whole mankind comes, they're like the kings, rulers. So that's why I said here. These demigods have seemingly overlapping powers, because in the previous verses, it was mentioned about kingdoms and so on and so forth. You can worship this particular demigod. There are different specific aspects to it, as far as kingdoms and empire, and maybe probably use the word empires. So the Manus are rulers, and the Manu Samhita is put together by the Brahmanas, and in order to rule in a certain way under the Manu. So they're empowered, and actually I think the word's used here, they're like a semi-gods, isn't it? As far as the Manu, they're like gods themselves, because they're empowered. There's someone who has to fulfill certain duties and if they're very great duties and responsibilities, if they're they're empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to perform that function. So certainly the Manus were empowered and ruling over, how to rule over, how to domination over a kingdom. And the word domination is used. Domination, how to keep everything in order and check. So one wants to become powerful in that. It is mentioned here by Sukadeva Goswami. He can worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons, Asuras. The Suras and Asuras. Suras are the Devas and Asuras are the demons. It's always the demons. They're very, very centered on themselves, and it's always friends and enemies. It's like, if you're with me, you're either, they have that popular saying, you're either with me or you're against me. Right? You're with me or against me. So it's like that. They're very much under the jurisdiction of Rajaguna and Tamaguna. And the more they're under the Tamaguna, the more self-centered they become. So everything's about themselves, their extended family. When you go low in the species, it's just about themselves. They don't even care about sometimes they even eat in species of life, eat their family, and just like they eat their mate or eat their young or something like that. So that very, 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 very acute self-centeredness. And so, but as you go out, and the humans, the Asuras, the demons. Now, of course, the demons in the upper planetary, they are the sons of Deity and Aditi and so on. They're very powerful. They're like demigods in a sense, but they are, against the position of the Supreme Personality of God. They want to rule over and conquer, and they perform tapasya. It's like Ravana perform tapasya, and so many other asuras perform tapasya. We told the story of Rikasura the other morning. He did the yagya, and he went to the Himalayas and performed the yagya to get the darshan of Lord Shiva and ask him the benediction. Whoever head he would touch with his hand would split asunder. So they perform these tamasic or rajasic tapasyas, and they gain power. They worship others, or they gain power by their own endeavours, and so they can empower others if you gain their favour. So it is recommended if you desire victory, and they're always thinking like that, victory and control and defeating the opposition. In the past you had big powerful asuras like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu. These days you kind of got many millions of little asuras, and maybe they can't conquer over like great planetary systems or regions of the earth, but they're trying to conquer over, defeat the opposition in some way. So they're always thinking like that. Everything is confrontation and defeating them and subjugating them. And this is very much the mentality of the asuras, subjugating and defeating, and someone is the enemy, and so on and so forth. And the 16th chapter, that he was my enemy and I defeated him. In that, there's one of the verses here in the Bhagavad Gita of the 16th chapter. So they're always thinking like that, and they're very powerful. And so if you want to be like that, whatever, if you have a desire like that, Krishna sees according to your desire and according to what you deserve. He arranges all these things. Just like if someone's very addicted to eating a lot of meat and so on and so forth, they're very addicted to that. They can take birth in a species of life that just eats, there are many species of life, all they eat is meat. So Krishna can fulfill that desire. So victory over the enemy, one should worship the demons. One who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. Now Chandra, there's all sorts of rituals to worshipping Chandra. Here is mentioned Soma. Soma is a nectar that's produced on the moon, that when one takes it, it's like invigorating. Somaras. But Chandra, there's all sorts of, I remember reading some time ago about worship of Chandra Devi. And the effect, he's very beautiful, very handsome, and the moon is very soothing. So actually, to worship the moon, it is said that in astrology, at least, that you worship the moon. You wear a certain you wear pearls. As far as if full moon is very what's the word, auspicious, but dark moon is considered malefic and inauspicious. But full moon. So if one had it, under your star situation, if moon is not very strong, you can wear the pearl and all sorts of things like that. But if worshipping the moon also, it is said by worshipping the moon mind becomes very pacified and strengthened. Also, moon is very good for your health, your general health, especially skin, any skin ailment, any skin or eyes. It is said also eyes. Anything to do with eyesight, it is you can perform certain rituals. There are certain brahmanas, vipras, who are expert in performing certain rituals to propitiate Chandradev, and he can help with the eyesight. He can help with the glow of the face and the body, and the nervous system. All these things: nervous system, the fluids of the body, the nervous system, eyes, skin, all the skin, nails, all these things are very much under the jurisdiction of the moon. The moon. So one who desires sense gratification, one can get their body all nice. Everyone's hankering, for being beautiful, or being handsome, having nice skin, like that, So, people spend, thousands of dollars in the industry, set up millions of dollars just to get nice skin. Creams and lotions and this and that and the other, forever putting them on. I don't know how they do it myself, but anyway, people they do all these things. And of course, Lagudi gave me the Swedish bitters. He said, you take it internally, and it's also good for the skin. Oh, very good. Put it on every day. I put it on. Very good for the skin. He gave me, and then I said, what do you just pour it on with it in the bottle? He said, no, I give you one thing. It was like the spray. She put the spray on. Because, I don't know about the smell of it, but anyway. Anyway, Swedish. So, so sense gratification, good body, good skin, good health, digestion, all that type of digestion, all that, calming the mind, sharpening the mind, also sharpening the mind, moon. And all this say, so worship the moon god if you've got a desire. So that increases sense gratification. If your body's strong, you're beautiful, handsome, that definitely can increase the sense gratification. So in that sense, Sukadeva Goswami, well, if you've got these types of desires, but of course then he says, but one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I always remember that the statement of Rupa Goswami. If one is interested to keep the company of your materialistic friends and enjoy materialistic life, then don't look upon the smiling face of Govinda, Lord Krishna, who has got very enchanting eyes and a moon-like face, and who stands by the Yamuna at Keshigat and plays his beautiful flute. Then if you want to keep enjoying the material, don't look at Govinda. Because as soon as you look at Krishna, then you'll see everything else paled into insignificance. So this is what is said here, and the next verse is very famous for Akama Sabakama. There's going to be broader intelligence is going to be explained a little bit more in the next verse. So the same theme here, Akama Purusham Param. Akama means the material desires, and here Prabhupada says that. He's very kind of strong here, because he says that one is captivated by all these types of desires and fulfilling these desires for material enjoyment. Captivated, uses the word captivated. You become, as I mentioned a few times before, the acharyas always use very select words. So this captivating is a very good word because you get captive, you become a captive to it. Instead of you being in control of it, and Prabhupada actually mentions this being out of control. That you have your desires, but then you become a slave to your own desires. You can't. It's like an intoxication. You've got to get more and more and more, and the last one was not going to be as satisfying anymore. You need a little bit more next time. Right? Just someone who's addicted to some sort of intoxication, they drinking or some drug or something like that. The last one was not. They need more and more and more. So you become captivated by that. You desired it, but when you get it, then you become captivated. And Prabhupada uses strong words here. That he says nonsensical. What does he say? Absolutely useless. This is the word, the term he uses. All these enjoyments. Here Sukadev Goswami going through worshipping all the demigods and what can be attained. And Prabhupada in his first sentence, he says, for liberated persons, all the enjoyments listed above are considered absolutely useless. And I've told the story many times before when in India, one man, he went to Prabhupada and he wanted to take his blessings and then he said, Prabhupada, please read my palm. Prabhupada said, we are not doing these things. No, and he kept persisting. Please, no, read my palm. And then after a while, Prabhupada said, all right, give me your hand. And he thought, and he gave it back. All useless. So I mean, you can read your palm and you can do all sorts of things. Oh, you're meant to get this and meant to get that. All useless. So this is Prabhupada saying again, absolutely useless, because it's temporary. That's the main thing. It's temporary. And in the beginning, it seems very, it's very alluring and enjoying. But then it doesn't last. Sometimes I use the phrase of the diminishing return. In accounting and in finances, when the business puts a lot of endeavour and a lot of money into their business, but after a while they start getting less and less return. It's called diminishing return. You're putting in a lot of money and you're getting some profit, but then successfully just gets less and less and less, and then after a while you're putting in more than what you're getting back. I was just at the feast yesterday. I was talking to some Danishwar who was saying that the other day he went out for a swim at Cabarita, and he said the waves were very, very strong, and and it took forever to get out, and just to be pushed up the beach, and he said it's hardly worth it. So this is just one example. It's hardly worth it. You take all that time to get out there, and then within a minute you can be crashed down, or you're just sent back in, and then there's another 15, 20 minutes to paddle out. I mean, Lalnath would know about these things. But yet they do it because they don't know anything else. They think, well, we just have to keep doing this. So, in businesses can be the same. You put all this effort in, but what are you getting out? And in the end, you're cannibalizing your own business because you're putting more in than what you're getting out. So actually, the material world is like that. So Prabhupada uses these words like captivated and all nonsense. And after a while, it's alluring and there's some enjoyment there. But it's just very short-lived in comparison to the absolute world. And it becomes, after a while, becomes tedious. Of course, it's relative. Someone is, 10 years old, then they'll think 6 months is a long time. 6 months. If you're 10, you have to wait 6 months before you can get that thing. Well, 6 months? That's so long, Dad. 6 months, right? I remember when we were like teenagers in early 1920 or whatever, one of my friends had a friend, and he was 30. And we all said, God, he's really old. He's really old, 30. And Joe Sheila was telling me when he was asking, what's his son's name, Joe Sheila's son? Nimai? Not Nimai. Anyway, his son, when his son was about 8 or 10 like that, he said, he was asking him what he thought was old. Who was an old person? What's an old person's, what was the age of an old person? And he said, 30. That's old. 25, 30. That's really old. So it's all relative. It's relative, isn't it? So, when you're 8 or 10, you may think 6 months is long. When you're 20, or 1 year, 2 years. I remember before I became a devotee, we came to this area just kind of checking out the different thing, and we all lived out at earlier. And we got lost going out to this place. And we asked a farmer. He said, I don't know exactly where that is, but you could ask the new guy up the road here. So, the new guy, how old? And he'd know. Well, he might know because he kind of goes in that area, and he's the new guy. I said, the new guy, how long's he been in the area? He's been about here 10 years. He's the new guy. So people, that particular farmer had all the generations that lived in the area. So someone who'd been there 10 years, he's the new guy. So it's a relative thing. So, when you're 20, you think that 30 years old. When you're 30, you think 40 or 50. So it's really, and when you're 10, 6 months is long. When you're 20, 1 year or 2 years. When you're 30, or 5 years. So everyone's got their relative thinking of things. They say when you get really older, you just think 10 or 20 years is just like nothing. then the saying is, then you're really getting old. Yeah, I remember 20 years ago. Many people weren't even born 20 years ago. So it's all a relative thing. And then I always remember the story of one devotee told me he went to visit his grandfather in hospital who was 96. He was like dying. And so he asked him, about his life and how things were and what do you think about? What comes to your mind the most? He said, that it all went by so quickly. It all went by so quickly. That was he said, what's the foremost thing quickly in 96? So it's all relative. And then, you look upon the 96 for the human being, and then you start talking about devas and demigods who lived for, in the previous age they lived for 1,000 years, or 10,000 years before that, 100,000 years people lived for in Satya Yuga. What's 50 or 60 years? If someone lived for 50 or 40 or 80, 90, 100, who lives to 100 these days? Hardly anyone. I remember way back, I seem to remember that if someone in the UK, if someone lived to 100, the Queen would send them congratulations. Something like that. But, so 100 years, but 100 years in the scale of things, to 1,000, so it's very short. So Prabhupada is saying here that on the absolute level, one can enjoy, but it's like a mosquito's enjoyment or something like that. Some insects just live overnight. So their whole life is a couple of days. They eat, they sleep, they mate, they defend, all in a few days. So it's a relative thing. So when you look at it in those terms, then you can understand absolutely useless. On the absolute, Prabhupada again uses these words, absolutely useless. Okay, you can get enjoyment, but in the long term. So especially if something's just, you can only enjoy something for a short time. And just as I said, it becomes very tedious. You get something and it's taken away, and you get something taken away, it becomes very tedious. So someone who is experienced in the world, the whole thing becomes tedious. And then someone who's actually on the transcendental platform experienced such transcendental bliss that these things just pale into insignificance. If you've got an old, run-down, beat-up car, just like a few of the cars that we see around here, mine included. If someone has come to you and said, "Look, I'll trade you your car and I'll give you this Porsche," something like that, you would immediately just take it. And you wouldn't even think twice about what you just had. They can do whatever they want with that thing, right? Right? They can do your old beat-up car that you were like perhaps very attached to, you know. Things were falling off, you went to so much trouble to fix it up. Something wrong with the motor, you get under there and try to fix it up. Remember when we were all young, all we could afford was all these kind of old cars. So we'd have to work on them and fix them up. And you know, all young guys are like that. They're fixing up cars all the time, right? So they're fixing it up and it breaks down, you fix it up, so put so much energy in it, you become very attached to it, very proud. Oh, I fixed it up. But if someone comes along and gives you a brand new car, you know, really a top-notch car, you know, you just throw that thing away and take that car. So similarly, in Krishna consciousness, on that absolute platform, if one is actually situated on that transcendental level, then everything else is just ridiculous. You know, it's just, therefore, Prabhupada says, absolutely useless. So one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and one is situated in that is on the topmost level. But one has to, now Prabhupada does make a strong point here about worshipping the devas. There are some people who think, well, you can just worship any deva for any result. And he makes a strong point here about if you purchase a ticket to Delhi, or what does he say, if you Bombay, I think it was. And no one can reach Bombay from Delhi by purchasing a ticket from Baroda. So, yeah, okay, and he quotes, and this is against what it says in Bhagavad Yanti Deva Bhutan Deva, Pitrin Yanti Pitrin Vata Bhutani Yanti Bhutech, Yanti Mam Yajinopi Mam. One worships the devas, one goes to the devas. One worships the Pitras, they go to the Pitras. If one worships the Bhutas, they go to the Bhutas, and one worships me, ultimately he comes to me. So, according to the worship, you can reach certain, not that Yatamat Tatapat, this philosophy, everything is the same. It's really impersonalizing everything. It doesn't matter which deva you worship, the same result will be there. Some altars I've seen in some Hindu family, they just have everyone on the altar. Everyone on the altar, and they just worship all the devas. They just worship them all, and whoever they are, they don't even know who they are. Some of them. It doesn't matter, as long as they're there. We kind of know that, you know, worshipping the higher beings is really good. We don't know who and what, but it doesn't really matter. We'll just worship all of them, and then we'll get the same result. But Prabhupada completely defunks that whole idea and says it's just a nonsense. He says it's just a nonsense. So to worship the Lord is the topmost position, but one has to come to the level of pure devotional service. You know, that's the topmost position. Not mixed. And some may think that, well, you know, mixed devotional service, you have a little devotional service and a little bit of material life. Yes, well, sometimes Krishna fulfills the material desires of the devotees, as also mentioned here. Ultimately using in his service, and ultimately you'll become detached from all that. That's the idea, as Prabhupada says here. That'll be explained more in the next verse. So yes, but one who actually thinks that material life and spiritual life, the combination of the two, that's the topmost position. The topmost position is the combination of the two. A little bit of Krishna consciousness, a little bit of material life. No. Prabhupada says here very clear, he said, no, pure Krishna consciousness without the tinge of the material life, whether it's fruitive activities or the gyan or anything like that, that is the top. And for one who actually can reach that level, the bliss and ecstasy is so great. Just like yesterday we had Gopunim, everyone came together. The bliss and ecstasy was so high. It was an ecstatic day, an ecstatic experience. The kirtan, everyone's very enthusiastic, and just chanting and dancing, and that was the topmost position. Didn't need anything else. just absorbed in that. So that is considered the greatest. So Prabhupada stresses on this point of pure, we in the beginning stages we are a little bit mixed, affected by the modes of material nature still a little bit, and so we have to be careful to always desire to come to the pure level and not be satisfied with the mixed level even. And so Krishna will give fulfill material desires for a devotee that they need certain things, but ultimately the devotee is thinking to come to the topmost position. All right, Hare Krishna, I'll read this verse again. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons. One who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. But one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you for the class, Maharaj. So my question is, like for example, you were giving example with Prabhupada with the palm reading example. Then he said, no, we don't do any of that stuff. But we do see devotees sometimes consult astrology and other areas which we may not know how bona fide is the source and stuff. But will that still be classified as Vittamarati, using it in Krishna service if you use it for?
If it's used in Krishna consciousness, just for the marriage and all that, the compatibility and for devotees and that, if it's used in Krishna consciousness. But ultimately, you're right. Ultimately, in pure Krishna consciousness, what's the use of any of these things? But in the meantime, while we're endeavouring to go to the topmost position, certain things can be used. Those things, of course, those things that are very sinful, we can't, use meat eating, for example, or we can't sort of advertise the Hare Krishna program and say, come to the Hare Krishna program and we've got 3 kegs of beer. I'm sure we'll be packed out. Free beer at the Hare Krishna program. Oh, there'll be a mad rush. So those things can't be utilised. Those things can't be. They're sinful activities. But certain things can be utilised in the meantime. But ultimately, when one is on the topmost position, what is the use of any of those things? It's a question of attitude and a question of utilising things very nicely in the Lord's service. So that for that type of thing, is for specifics, you gave the example of astrology, but for specific, then you should consult your guru, you should consult the senior Vaishnava to get along the Shastras, to get an idea of whether something can be utilised nicely in the Lord's service.
For the class, Maharaj. I was just reading the canto this morning, and the verses about Lord Rama and different demigods. And then in the book, what Robert said, and this was interesting because sometimes Indian body devotees may say to me, my parents are so attached to worshipping the demigods, I don't know how to convince
Who's so attached?
Sometimes Indian body
Indian.
whom I'm talking to, they'll say, my parents are so attached
my parents.
to the demigods, how can I convince them that Krishna is the supreme, etc. And in this purport, Prabhupada said, if someone worships the demigods, but with the understanding that the offerings they give to the demigods give to Krishna, then it's okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's quite an interesting point, some devotees are very distressed about.
So that was a way he was saying you could speak to people like that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways you can present it. And so Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, all the acharyas are very expert at presenting in different ways to different types of people. And so that's the point there, right? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.